Welcome to the Scan the Webserver lab. Open the folder, double click on the appliance, tell it to include all network adapter MAC addresses and not to import hard drives as VDI. And it will open up VM VirtualBox to unpack the machines. This time it has 3 machines to unpack. Takes a little bit longer, still just a few minutes. This is a good time for you to read through the exercise and make sure you understand what you're about to do and hopefully what it means. Okay, once the machines are unpacked, then we first check the network settings for the router firewall. We go to network, might check the MAC address here. All you really have to do is open the settings and close them again so that VirtualBox will synchronize the network drivers. And we start that machine. You may notice that the DHCP service is started. Once it's started, we can start the other 2 machines. I'm going to select them both and click Start Together. You know this machine is all the way up when it says Enter an option. That's a good signal that you're ready to go. After a bit, all 3 machines are up and running. The firewall, the ecom server, which is running on the DMZ segment, and the admin machine, same one we've been using for other labs in the OfficeNet segment. Next, we're going to verify that the ecom machine has the correct IP address. It should have been assigned by the DHCP server for its network segment based on its MAC address. To log into the ecom server, we log in to the Taylor Tut account using the password capital A admin, capital P pass. Give it a moment to wake itself up. There you go, it's logged in. We're going to go to System Tools and open a terminal window. There are different terminal programs on different versions of Linux. We're going to type IP-adder, which is a command that asks for the IP address of the machine and some other information. And we'll notice here that 10.0.2.102 is the correct address, and that's the one we expect. So that is good. The next thing we're going to do is run the nmap command. We're going to run it on this machine, the Ubuntu admin machine, which is on the OfficeNet segment. It's going to request a scan for the IP address of the ecom server, so it will reach through the router and give us information about this server to see what services are running. Again, we open a terminal window. We use the nmap command. Same IP address as before, 10.0.2.102. And it shows, as in the instructions, which services and ports are open on this machine. The next step is for us to begin setting up the new webmaster account on our ecom server. So we're going to go over to our ecom server and run these commands there. Cube terminal. And we're going to give the command sudo add user webmaster. Nothing special about webmaster except that's the username we're going to use. This is an important command that needs powerful access. So we're going to use the password again, capital A admin, capital P ASS. And it wants to know what password to use for this account. Create an initial one. We're going to use vendor pass, capital VENDOR, capital $PA, $, which we'll have to verify, VENDOR. it'll ask us for some additional information about the user, which we're not going to provide at this point for this exercise. And we're going to say, yes, that's correct. And now we've added the user. The next thing we're going to do is add the webmaster to the sudoer group, the group of users who can make super powerful commands on this server. That's important if the webmaster is going to be able to do their work, in our scenario at least. Sudo user mod add group, the sudo group, user. Easy and quick. So now webmaster can execute commands with powerful privileged user rights. For the purposes of our exercise, we're also going to add an additional user, sudo add user. We'll call this one webmaster 2. And while we're at it, we're going to give them the ridiculously easy to crack password ABC123. In. And we're not going to fill in the additional information, which we might find appropriate in some cases. We'll tell it, yes, that information is correct. Okay, so I closed that terminal window. Let's open a new one. Didn't have to do that. Something I did. So now what we're going to do, now that we have a power user webmaster created, we're going to check on the SSH service, which is what allows a remote shell to be accessed and let the webmaster do work right on the console of this ecom server. So first we check it, status, sudo service, sudo service, SSH status, and what's our password? You may recall that the password is needed after a certain amount of time. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't, but you always have to put it in at least once to obtain root level access rights. You'll see here that the SSH service is loaded but inactive. That's on purpose. We installed it on this machine, but we have not enabled it. We haven't turned it on and had it start running. So now we're going to start that service. Sudo systemctl start SSH. We want to verify that that worked okay. To do that, we can hit our up arrow twice to find an old command and check the service again. I have this set to a big font. Now I change the size and you can see that the SSH service is now running and it's listening on port 22, which is the standard port for SSH. As before, to get out of this, we can hit Control-C, and that takes us out of the system control program back to a regular shell prompt. Next thing we're going to do is make the webmaster a folder that they can do their SSH work in. To do that, we still need system level privileges. mkdir stands for make directory or make a folder. Then we have to give it the name of the folder, which in this case is /home/webmaster /.ssh. That's the name of the folder that we wanted to create. Okay, so now we have the webmaster and a folder for them to work in. The next thing we're going to work on is the configuration of the SSH server. We're going to do something that might seem like a bad idea. which is we're going to allow someone to connect to it remotely using just a username and a password. It doesn't follow leading practices for an SSH server, but it's also not unheard of. It's something that would be set up for a remote contractor who prefer to work that way. Probably we don't want to do that, but such access is not uncommon. To adjust the settings file for SSH server, we're going to open the file system. And here we can click on this. It opens up a picture that's like familiar to you from Windows, more or less, where you have a file manager. If we click up here into this area up in the top, the navigation bar, we can go to the right folder, which is /etc/ssh. etc/ssh. So it's an important folder. We go to Tools, Open tab in Root Instance. To do that, we have to give the password again. Prove we're a sudoer. Admin pass. You'll see now we have root instance access to this folder structure. And this is the file we want to work on, ssh config. We right click on that and we tell it to open with Featherpad, which happens to be the text editor readily available on this version of Ubuntu. Within here, you'll see a bunch of commands, a bunch of instructions that are loaded as SSH starts up. Ones that start with a hashtag or a £, whatever you call the symbol, hashtag. Those are disabled, they're commented out. But we're going to turn this one back on and say, we're going to allow password authentication. And then we click this picture of a little floppy disk and tell it to save. And we've now set it up so that when SSH loads, it will enable yes for the parameter password authentication because it found it in the SSH config file that it automatically loads when it starts up. Close all that out. In order to make that reconfiguration take effect, we have to restart the service. And you have to be careful about in practice, because if some other people were SSHing into this machine and doing work, then you'd probably knock them out and make them start over their current session when you did. Okay, so we tell it to restart the service. And we've now enabled the webmaster to do all kinds of things on this e-commerce machine so they can fulfill their contract. So now we're going to go back and take a look at what we can see when we look at this machine with a network mapping tool. So we go back over here to our network admin machine. So now we're on the Ubuntu machine, and we're going to, once again, by hitting the up arrow, tell it to do nmap on 10.0.2.102. And you might look at this list before we do. It doesn't show any port. The only port it shows open is port 80. We run this now, we see in addition to port 80 for HTTP, we've now opened up port 22 for SSH. That is to say, this server over here, as shown by the command we gave here to nmap to scan this server, notes that this additional port and service are now open. That means the webmaster, if they can get packets to this server, can now get the work done that they want to.